Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I've recently finished. Today I want to look at a remake of a retro game, so I'll be treating it as a retro game for the purposes of this video. That's going to be Resident Evil 2 Remake for the PlayStation 4 and now PlayStation 5 since they recently released an upgrade for that one. Now I love the Resident Evil franchise. I reviewed Resident Evil 4 and its remake, and I've played through every single Resident Evil mainline game as well as several of the spin-offs including Resident Evil 0, Code Veronica, and Revelations as well, the first one on the 3DS. And I love the Resident Evil franchise. I don't love every single game in the franchise. Some of the spin-offs kind of suck. Not the ones that I mentioned, but there are several more that really suck or not worth playing. But I love what the mainline entries have to offer in this game. Even if they weren't the best game, I love the storyline that it presents and the world that they've built around this. I think Resident Evil is the best horror franchise out there because it typically marries horror and action in just the best way. And Resident Evil 2 I was really intrigued by because I'd played the original, but I didn't play through the entirety of it. I didn't play a ton of the game. I played it back, I think when I was much younger. I emulated it and I was interested in what it was, but I couldn't get through the old tank controls. I wasn't good enough at the game back then. And I was really intrigued by Leon Kennedy's origin story because he's my favorite character in the franchise. I love Resident Evil 4, so I really wanted to go through and play through this game. I remember when they announced this, I was so excited. It looked so good, and I was intrigued by them actually remaking some of their old games. The first remake they did was the Resident Evil remake on the GameCube, which is another fantastic title, but they didn't remake anything else until Resident Evil 2. And this was such an intriguing idea because they were going to change up some things to make it unique from the original, change up, add some more story stuff, and I loved the idea of them doing that, because now if I go back and play the original, I know I'm going to have a separate experience. And Resident Evil 2 blew me away. It not only exceeded my expectations, but it almost made me question if this was the best game in the franchise. Now, Resident Evil 2 takes place in Raccoon City. This is Leon Kennedy's first day on the job. He's going off to be a police officer and encounters the zombie horde, as it were. He gets confronted by this zombie invasion that's going on, and is kind of thrust into saving as many people as he can, trying to save this city from destruction. And it's such a crazy thing to throw such a new rookie into. In Resident Evil 4, Leon is so calm and calculated. He's not worried about anything. He sees all of these crazy monsters throughout the entirety of his experience and doesn't even bat an eye at them. And by that point, he's a seasoned veteran. This is him at his most vulnerable. He has no idea what's going on. He's never encountered anything like this. He was just trying to be a police officer in Raccoon City, and now he's tasked with saving the entire area and keeping the zombie outbreak in check. Quite an undertaking for sure. I love what they did with the combat in Resident Evil 2. I like that they went with over the shoulder, just like in Resident Evil 4. They made it a third-person action game, but I love how they changed up the actual like aiming and the reticle. In Resident Evil 4, the original, they had the perfect aim. You have the red dot sight, and you know when you're going to hit. And this one, depending on how much you're moving around, if you're stationary, you can zero in on your reticle much faster, so you can get a more improved aim, but you're never really guaranteed a shot, which I think adds to the tension and horror in a major way. The fact that you have to really calculate all your shots and make them count is what has made the previous games so fantastic in the series, but especially in this game. You really feel the weight of each bullet. Now, enemies are also tankier than they are in most Resident Evil games and previous ones. They made them much harder to kill. They're more sporadic in their movements as well, so you have to really be on your game at all times. If not, you're going to get mobbed. You're going to get overrun. You're going to take a lot of damage in lots of places where you can't be. This game is all about conservation. You should be conserving your ammo. You should be conserving your healing items as much as humanly possible because you will need them, especially if you're playing on the harder difficulties like I like to do. I like playing on the harder difficulty that allows for the typewriters for the save points and not having auto-saving. I think that's a staple of the series, so I always play on that at my baseline. I like the typewriter system. I think it's really fantastic. This game explores, since this game is older, I'm going to maybe get into some spoiler territory, but not too much. I won't divulge too much in the actual plot of the game. One of the biggest things I wanted to talk about was Mr. X in this game. He is absolutely terrifying. You encounter him relatively early on in the story, and this was the predecessor to Nemesis in Resident Evil 3, where he is constantly pursuing you after you encounter him. He breaks through walls, he'll jump scare you at various points throughout the game. There are scripted moments and other times when he just pops up out of nowhere, and he is invincible. You can stall him by shooting at him. You can stop him for a little bit of time, but he is, by all accounts, invincible. So your only option is to get away. He's pretty fast, so you have to either escape to a safe room where you can hold out because for some reason he doesn't go into the safe rooms. Who knows why? Or you have to just run away until you've lost him. And it makes the game so terrifying to play. And I love that. I love the tension that it adds, because not only are you trying to explore the game and get through each area, now you have this crazy force pursuing you the entire way. I love what they did with this character. He's really scary. In fact, I think he might be even scarier than Nemesis in a lot of ways, just because of how stoic and how much he just pursues after you relentlessly throughout pretty much the entirety of the game. Now, this game also takes the kind of the sense of exploration to a new level. You have lots of areas that you have to get specific items for. You can have sections where you can play as Claire Redfield. You have a whole campaign where you can play as either one. But you have these sections where you have to get certain items to progress. Almost Metroidvania-esque. More, it's just like a puzzle sequence. In most Resident Evil games, you'll find bolt cutters. Now you can open up certain areas. I like how this game, once you've finished using a key item, it'll tell you you don't need this anymore. You can toss it, because what's the word I'm looking for? Utilizing your item space that you have, making sure that you're not over encumbering yourself. You only have a certain amount of slots that you can use. So you can store them in the boxes in the save rooms, or you can just drop certain things. So once you're done with these key items, they take up an inventory slot, but you can drop them after you don't need them any longer, which is really helpful. Helps you to not have to waste a spot thinking, when am I going to use this again? The game tells you exactly when you need it. But it helps you unlock certain things. I like exploring everything in a Resident Evil game. I like finding all the hidden rooms, getting all the bonuses that you can. And this game is really, really good about helping you explore the entire map, showing you when you're done with certain things, recognizing when I've unlocked everything in an area. It shows you where certain things are. If you've missed consumables, you can go back and pick them up. I love how the map system works in this game. I also love how they script some of the horror sequences. There are some times where you'll all of a sudden there's one sequence where you are suddenly mobbed by a ton of enemies. And with Mr. X pursuing at the same time. You have to decide how to navigate this situation. And it is horrifying and so difficult to get through. I remember the first time I encountered something like this, I panicked. I had no idea what to do. I just tried running headlong into Mr. X and got pulverized for it. I was able to escape, but just narrowly, because I didn't have enough healing items or the ammunition to get through all these enemies. The game really sets up these sequences to make them so intense and so terrifying. I also love the way they introduce certain enemies, like the giant liquor enemies that climb on the ceiling. That was horrifying in the original Resident Evil 2. I remember seeing bits and pieces of this and some of the scariest moments in the series. I've seen videos on those, and this did not disappoint. In the remake, they upgraded the visual horror in such a fantastic way. Everything is way more terrifying, including these enemies. Encountering them really sends a shiver up your spine. They're difficult to defeat. They are scary to encounter. If you don't have the ammunition, you have to run, but they're pretty fast. It's so good what they were able to do with this game. So in every single way, Resident Evil 2 Remake is the best of the Resident Evil franchise. You're taking the best protagonist, first and foremost, with Leon. You have Claire Redfield, who's also an equally interesting protagonist, having these two separate stories that you can experience. You have a persistent enemy chasing you. You have terrifying elements in the form of some of these the visuals for some of the enemies. You have really terrifying AI that you have to encounter, and you have bosses that you'll fight. This game does everything that Resident Evil does well, and then turns it up to the highest possible setting. They really maxed out everything on this game. I think Resident Evil 2 Remake is a perfect Resident Evil experience and a perfect horror action experience. I love it from start to finish. Everything about this game is fantastic. So I'm going to give Resident Evil 2 Remake a platinum rank. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.